Hello, I've got one simple question for you. Is Sid Phillips from Toy Story a villain? Well, according to my intense research and some data collection, I've observed that Sid Phillips is widely considered a Pixar villain. But I think you're wrong. Unless you agree with me, then you're right. To answer this question, we need to look at some other things, and where better to start than other villains? I think some of the most concrete examples of Pixar villains are Hopper, Syndrome, Waternoose, Ernesto de la Cruz, and, Stinky Pete. I think everybody can agree that these characters are unanimously villains. Hopper decided it would be a good idea to take down an entire race because he wanted food. Syndrome was a little spoiled inventor who was like, "Oh, somebody told me no, I'm mad. I'm so mad, and I'm gonna kill people now." Stinky Pete felt like he got scammed out of the glory that he deserved, even though he was just a fat little guy who stayed in the box the entire time. Waternoose was trying his best to keep his company afloat, even if it meant kidnapping 1 million children. And finally, Ernesto de la Cruz was so concerned with his popularity, he forgot to consider morals.
So based off that, is Sid a villain? Want to throw in some evidence? Yes, he loves torturing sentient beings. That's pretty villain-like. But to answer this question even more adequately, we have to look at characters who aren't villains.
Alright, I need you to bear with me here for a second. Is Terry, Anton Ego, Otto, or Darla a villain? In their respective movies, they're the closest thing to being villains. But does that make them a villain? In Soul, Terry's just doing his job. In Ratatouille, Anton Ego's just doing his job. In WALL-E, Otto's just doing his job. And in Finding Nemo, Darla just wants a fish. So maybe it's these jobs, or the fish wanting, that makes them into villains, right?
Do you have any clue why I pulled you over today? No, I really don't know why. Yeah, so you're going about 60 miles per hour in a school zone, which is fine for the most part, but other than the fact that it's illegal. Do I need to get my lawyer? No, there's no need to get your lawyer. Everything's gonna be okay. No, you're fine. You're gonna be okay. You're gonna be okay. Yeah, you have a gun. You have a gun. You have a gun. You have a gun. You have a gun.
This guy's job, which causes problems for the main character, doesn't make him a villain. It makes him an obstacle. Although Terry's the closest thing to a villain, it doesn't make him one. It doesn't matter that Joe Gardner was the one to ruin Terry's life. It matters that somebody ruined Terry's life. If I was Terry and somebody ruined my count, yes, I'd be mad too. Anton Ego's job is to criticize food, and you can't call him a villain because he criticizes food. Otto is literally programmed to follow orders, so he can't technically do anything wrong. And Darla, well, she just wants a fish, so yay, Darla. Well, what if we compare these villain-like characters to our already established villains? If you're a very astute listener, you'll understand that the only difference between these characters that I've just listed for you are intent or motivation, depending on how you look at it. Hopper goes out of his way with ill intent to make sure our main character doesn't really live to see the next summer, because, you know, that's a good kid's movie. Whereas Terry, on the other hand, just wants to do his job right. And it's not personal, it just happens to be against our main character. That's why these characters are better classified as obstacles. They don't have any ill intent, but they still get in the way. So let's go back to Sid Phillips from Toy Story, that polygon-looking stupid child. Is he a villain? You have 10 seconds to answer now. No. No, he's not. Even though Sid does do objectively kind of messed up things, it doesn't make him a villain. Even though the toys he tortures are sentient, how the heck do you expect him to know that? Like, what happens when I go to wash my plate when I'm doing dishes, and the next thing you know, the thing's sentient, and it turns out I'm drowning it?
What the? You're alive?
Yes, I am! Is that my fault? No, I'm just doing dishes. It's the plate's fault because he didn't speak up. In Toy Story, the toys are toys. You are a toy! Even though Sid is mutilating his toys, it doesn't make him a villain. Don't get me wrong, that's weird. But get me right here, that's not on the same level as killing an entire race because you want food. Come on, you can't compare Sid to Hopper. If we go back to our obstacle versus villain definition, then next thing you know, Sid has no ill intention against these toys. He just happens to get in the way of the story. So I swear, next time I see Sid being ranked as a Pixar villain or being on any list relating to villains whatsoever, I am going to you don't want to know. Now, this entire argument goes farther than just Sid. There's a ton of other characters who are considered villains, but really aren't. But in other cases, there's villains who just aren't villains until later on in the movie. Like at Charles Muntz. He was a really chill guy until he heard about the bird that Carl Fredricksen and that little fatso had.
So, Carl, what brings you to Paradise Falls?
Well, you know, it was in honor of my wife who passed away a few years back, and I thought, might be a good idea to go do some traveling. So I brought this little guy, that dog, and that bird we found.
Did you say bird?
Yeah, his name's Kevin. What about him? My point in saying all of this is that some villains aren't villains. They're obstacles.
When you have a villain, they're there to cause problems. When you have an obstacle, they just cause problems.
So yes, I understand the confusion, but goodness, why is it so hard for people to understand that this kid is not a murderous psychopath? He just likes mutilating dolls. Holy cow. Okay. This is a rant. I'm gonna go. Bye. Wait, go home. No, I'm home. Bye. You should watch that video. Watch that video up there.